Good evening, Dr. Vidya, Dr. Anita. I hope I'm audible.
Good evening.
Yes,
Good evening,
we have.
Vidya. Good evening,
Good
Vidya.
I
Good
think we
evening,
have 4 more
Anisa.
minutes,
Okay.
so we start on. Yeah. Good evening, Dr. Vidya. Dr. Vidya, Dr. Anita, shall we start? I mean, though our participants are yet to join, I think it would be nice that we keep to the time.
Yes, sure.
Yes, I shall put, because I believe they will also join us eventually, but honoring the ones who actually come on time, that would be nice. Yes. Welcome, everyone. to the panel discussion on international fellowship during doctoral studies. And we are, at least Just Focus Academic Consultancy, is deeply honored to host you virtually on such an interaction, which will give you a different experience and a different approach to how you look in through your research program. And for that, we have with us Dr. Anita Yadav and Dr. Vidyan Jacob, renowned academicians who have proved their excellence in their field, and also fellows with two prestigious international fellowships. To give you a background on the purpose of the panel discussion, it is to bring or make the scholars aware about various research opportunities that you have funded by various governments and non-governmental organizations during your doctoral studies. Always obtaining an international fellowship or an international exposure would add value not to our professional life, but also to our personal being. So all of us at one point or the other have wished to do a part of our academic study with an international organization. So this particular fellowship, this particular panel discussion focuses on having the benefits of both the worlds. So while you are registered or doing your PhD in India, you have multiple opportunities that will give you exposure at an international forum. So you would have most of you would be aware about multiple fellowships like the Fulbright, Erasmus. To add on, we have DAT Fellowship, the SI Shastri Institute Fellowship, the multiple organization funding short-term research courses or research programs abroad in different countries. So the purpose is to give you an awareness about the existing fellowship, more focus to have the fellows themselves give you the experience on how they have prepared a proposal that gave them an upper hand to actually get these fellowships. As all of you are aware, these fellowships are competitive in itself. So when you can get these tips and tricks that can probably help you through your journey, I believe it will be advantageous to all the scholars here. So I hope all of you have a fruitful session. We have scheduled a 45 minutes of lecture divided among three of us. And we have 15 minutes reserved for Q&A. So that'll help you clarify as to how you can prepare your proposal, look at fellowship, where you can find them. But a humble request is, as the focus of the discussion is on international fellowships for registered scholars, I would request you to constrain your questions to that and not look at PhD abroad as an option per se or your master's program abroad. We would be giving you space exclusively for that at a later point. To start off, I would like to invite our first panelist, Dr. Anita Yadav. For many in the research field, she would not be a new face. Dr. Anita ma'am has proved her excellence in her field through multiple avenues. She has umpteen number of fellowships to her credit, starting off with definitely the Erasmus Mundus Fellow, apart from which she has the Hague Academy Fellowship. She's recently traveled to Portugal on fellowship for her conference. I think fellowship would probably be her second name too. The academic credentials that she's carried, the publications as resource person, her face is familiar to all in the field of law. So I invite Dr. Anita Yadav to take over the place. Ma'am, so I'll stop sharing. Would you, I believe I've given you sharing rights.
Okay, I do not have a PPT. Ria, thank you so much. I hope I'm audible.
Yes.
Okay, so please let me know in case if I, get disconnected, because today, I don't know, my Wi-Fi is a little bit unstable. So thank you so much for your kind words, Neha, and thank you. I will also would like to take this opportunity to welcome all the participants, and of course my dear friend Vidya. She's also a co-panelist for today's discussion. So very nice to see you, Vidya, in this panel. So thank you, Ria, for inviting me on a very pertinent topic on panel discussion on international fellowship during doctoral studies. Let me tell you, when I was applying, I wish you would have started your consultancy at that point of time, because I really struggled, to find out if anyone can guide me. So anyways, I'm happy that you have taken this initiative, which is, actually the need of the hour. Hardly we find, any kind of a program or consultancy, who can help us in application process. So whatever I learn through my experiences, of course, with the help of through friends also. So, so friends, before I directly jump into that, what was the step which I have followed, and what are the certain things which you can keep in mind. I think we all need to understand the importance of fellowship is in today's context, because I'm sure you all must have certain objectives, certain goals in your mind, why you wanted to get the fellowship. And apart from that, there are certain important factor which I wanted to highlight. Of course, fellowship is very important to build up of your CV, resume, and given the globalized nature of any topic, you just name any topic, there will be certain international aspect for that particular topic. So now you can't confine yourself, sitting in a one place and researching. Those days has gone now. So I think in today's context, the fellowship has become very important. It's not only with regard to the high quality education, but what I believe, it also helps us a lot in developing our communication skill, our personality skill, because the moment you go to the other country, you get a different level of the confidence. So this is certain importance of the fellowship. And the second important factor which I wanted to address in this session, which I often come across from the student, ma'am, from where to get to know about the notification of the scholarship. So friend, let me tell you one of the my friend initiative just focus website, which you can check it, and I've browsed through the website. So I just saw, Ria, you have given the link of all the important fellowship, so you can get all the notification from that particular website. Then you have a Octopus, you have a knowledge speech website. You can also check the respective university website if you have certain specific scholarship in your mind. And of course, nowadays a lot of social networking sites are also available. Just you have to keep your eyes and ear open in order to get the notification for the fellowship. So this is something the common thing which I was addressing. And now coming to the exactly the scholarship which I got it, and I'm going to share certain things which can be useful for you if you're applying fellowship. Especially I'm focusing on the Germany. So I got this Erasmus Mundus Namaste Exchange Fellowship during my PhD studies. So I was registered for a PhD in India in National School of India, University Bangalore. And during my PhD study, I got this scholarship. And this Erasmus Mundus scholarship is a scholarship which is, basically focused on European countries. So you will get the chance to visit one of the European university. Of course, you have to check how many European university are partner with that particular, Indian university. So I was lucky that National School of India University Bangalore was in a partnership with that university. So this Erasmus offer both long-term as well as short-term fellowship. I got for a 6 month. In beginning, I chose for a 6 month, but later I realized no, it is good to choose for a 10 months. So finally, it got extended for a 10 months. And being Indian, of course, coming from third world country, we are eligible to apply for this scholarship. And good part of this scholarship is that it covers everything. I mean to say, whatever you require, your travel expenses, your cost of, tuition fee, insurance, all your living allowances. So I was getting €1,500 per month. That was sufficient amount, to cover everything. So with regard to the, cost, it covers everything. And now, with regard to the timeline that when this scholarship usually announced, so let me tell you, you have to keep checking the website, because not regularly comes. It depends upon the the time. I mean to say, it's like a project wise scholarship. So in my case, the application came in August 2014, and the deadline for the application was October 2014. And after 6 months, I came to know about the result. And after result, it took around 6 to 7 months, time period to visit to Germany. So it's I hope you are understanding it takes almost a year. So you have to plan, very well in advance before applying any fellowship in Germany. So this was the short time period which I wanted to give you. And one of the scholarship which Ria has also, told all of you in the beginning with regard to the DAD scholarship, which is also offers various kind of scholarship through which you can, pursue your study in Germany. And I was just checking the DAD scholarship time period for this current batch of 2022 and 23. I found that deadline was on 15 July 2022. And they also take 5 to 6 months to, inform the candidate about the selection. And after, again, 5 to 6 month gap for the final issue of the letter of award. So this is basically the timeline for this two important scholarship if you wanted to visit Europe or particularly Germany. And now I'm coming to most important thing which you all need to keep in mind while applying for a fellowship, especially I'm talking about the Europe. So the first important thing is that you have to carefully read the eligibility criteria. When I say the eligibility criteria, I hope I does not mean the basic eligibility criteria. Of course, you all must be fulfilling that. For example, for a PhD, if you wanted to go in exchange, of course, you should be registered for a PhD somewhere in India. So when I say the eligibility criteria, I mean to say there are certain scholarship which specify certain selection requirement. For example, there are certain scholarship which gives, let's say, preference to the women candidate. There are certain scholarship application which give the preference to, let's say, if you're coming from a economically disadvantaged background, or there are certain scholarship which give the preference if you have, let's say, certain work experience in that particular field in which you are applying it. So reading the eligibility criteria and the scholarship requirement is a must. And I will advise you to all of you take a print, paste it on a wall in your study room and read it again and again and again, because that is going to help you in all various aspects when you are going to apply for the scholarship. So this is the first thing which you have to do it as per my experience. Second, of course, your CV, because you have to also, attach your CV in almost all the application for the fellowship. So as far as Europe is concerned, you have to make your CV in Europass format, which is a, European format. So there are a lot of templates and a lot of samples are available online. You can, check the sample and you can make your CV accordingly. And the next points comes your proficiency in the language. So mostly at a PhD level, you do not require to, go through any of the TOEFL and Ilts test. You only need to get the certificate from your institution that your medium of the instruction was in English. That will suffice. But of course, you have to check, university to university. And the most important parts come the motivation letter. There are so many of my friends and colleagues, they have asked my motivation letter. Of course, I've shared with them also. But let me tell you, that is not going to help, because my journey and your journey is entirely different. There might be certain similarity, but not at all level. So I will sincerely advise you, do not, copy the other motivation letter. Of course, you can get an idea, but the first thing I will advise you, you just write it yourself. And later on, you can see it, because the moment you see so many motivation letters, you tend to get biased. So, they are looking for the originality in your motivation letter. So you have to make sure that whatever you are writing in motivation letter, it should be, a result oriented. You should be in a position to justify it. And the most important part for any fellowship is getting the invitation letter from the host university. So this is one of the, if you have got the invitation letter, my friend, let me tell you, you have won half of the battle. So getting an invitation letter is not an easy, especially if you don't know anyone in let's say in a European country. But anyways, I got it, because at that point of time, I was not knowing anyone. If I can get it, you can also get it. Only thing is that you have to be very smart enough what you are writing, and you have to make sure that they all are very busy professor. And if they are opening your email, they should get the interest. So the way you are drafting your email to get the invitation letter plays a very important role. So make sure you check the background of your supervisor in a host country, whether her or his research area is matching with your research area. And next come the recommendation letter. So many times, a lot of my friends tells, see, if I get the invitation letter, let's say from education minister, it would be easier to get this fellowship. So my friend, my answer is a no. So getting a recommendation letter from a renowned person is not going to work. So make sure you get a recommendation letter from, let's say, your professor who has, supervised you during your LLM dissertation. So make sure you get a recommendation letter, not from a renowned person, but from the person who can really recognize your potential, who can really justify that you have the potential to get this particular fellowship. And of course, the most important parts come for a research proposal. So there's a lot of aspects, of course, which I won't be able to wrap up in 15 minutes. So make sure, there are a lot of program areas organizing a research proposal that can help you to, build your research proposal in a very nice way, which can also increase your chances for selection in a fellowship. So Ria, please let me know if I'm exceeding my time.
You can take 5 more minutes, no problem.
Okay, I can take 5 more minutes. Okay, great. All right. So yeah. So your research paper publication also plays a very important role, especially if you're going at a PhD, because this panel discussion is especially for the PhD level. So having a research paper publication in a good journal also plays a very important role. And please make sure, just a minute. I think my internet is unstable. I hope I'm audible. Am I audible? Okay. Okay. So just make sure, whenever you make a CV, don't make your CV, let's say, for a 10 pages. It's not going to help you. You please see in which area exactly you are applying. I mean to say, let's say if my area is let's say cyber law, and I am applying, I have made my research proposal, of course, on the cyber crime, cyber law. So I will try to include only those publications which is relating to the cyber law, rather than, let's say refugee law or environmental law. So you not need to make your CV so much lengthy. So make sure whatever you write in your CV, that should be crisp, or that should be, according to your, to say the requirement of the fellowship. So these were certain common things which I wanted to, highlight, which you will find in almost all the fellowship. Anyways, other two co-panelists are also there. They will share with their experience with regard to their, fellowship, if there is certain different criteria. And so these are certain things which I wanted to highlight. And yeah, there are a few more points I wanted to highlight with regard to short-term fellowship. So in case, if you're not very confident, or let's say, if you're not getting through this scholarship, you don't need to worry about that. What I will advise you, go for a short-term fellowship, because let me tell you, the moment you get one fellowship, it opens the gate for your future fellowship. So there are various short-term fellowships are available in the form of, let's say, summer courses. So go and attend for a 1 month of summer courses. It will help you to develop the context. And, in that way, you can get the, fellowship which you are targeting. For example, I was fortunate enough to get the Hague Academy of International Law Summer Courses Fellowship, which was a very, very useful. So because this summer courses covers both public international law, private international law. So you can go for this short-term fellowship also, wherein you can build in your CV, and it will increase your chances to get the fellowship. And there's another fellowship which I got. It's called United Nations Regional Course in International Law. And usually this fellowship is given to, people who are coming from Asia Pacific countries. So this is again a very, good fellowship. So you can also start from a, short-term fellowship from 1 month to 10 months. That can also help you. So this is some, from here, I will stop my discussion. And if there is any query, as Ria has suggested, we will take up towards the end of discussion. So thank you, Ria. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much for the insights. I believe we'll reserve the questions towards the end, because they might have some overlapping about how proposal would go, and likewise. Meanwhile, participants, feel free to post your questions in the chat box so that you don't miss out on that. So at this point, I would like to invite Dr. Vidya, a very close friend of both of us, and also a fellow of Fulbright, because Fulbright is I think in anyone knows, not heard of fellowship would have still heard of Fulbright. A Fulbright scholar, apart from being a Fulbright scholar, she's been part of numerous international projects, been closely associated with projects related to climate change, and her work in climate change particularly has attracted a large number of attention because of the work she's conducted. So, Dr. Vidya, we're so happy to have you here, and I hand over the floor to you.
Thank you so much. I'm actually very, very excited to see both of you here. But thank you for this opportunity. I really hope that this small session that Just Focus has started as an initiative is going to actually open up avenues for most of the scholars here. And we urge all of you to try. I know we always have this fear of failure, but don't doubt yourself. Just go for it, and I'm sure that all of you will succeed. So Ria ma'am has given me this task of telling you a bit about Fulbright Scholar program and how it worked for me. So just a quick understanding. So today we're going to basically deal with Fulbright, Shastri and Erasmus Mundus. So I'm just going to look at the Fulbright Fellowship. So if you go to their website, they have classification of the fellowship into masters, PhD scholarship for Nehru and PhD scholarship fellowship for Kalam, and obviously postdoctoral fellowship. The reason why I'm stating this is the moment you go into their website, unless you classify which exactly is your area, it will be a little difficult for us to cut across. So Nehru is generally for all kind of subjects, but Kalam Fellowship is exclusively for climate change. So please be careful when you're applying and be very specific as to what kind of fellowship you're going to be applying. Now, how long is the fellowship? So the Fulbright Fellowship varies from 6 years to about 9 months if it's a doctoral, and postdoctoral it'll go up to 2 years. But since the focus is only on doctoral, we'll just stick to that. So even when your proposal goes forward, you need to specify how many months you intend to work in the field. So if you write 3 months, there is a possibility that your proposal might be rejected because they're looking for a minimum of 6 months to about 12 months or 9 months. Now, how do you plan your fellowship? If I want to get for Fulbright, what are the things that I have to kind of look at? So first thing is the right university. So it's very important for you to identify which university has your course and a professor who's able to take you. So if for example, I want to go to Harvard, but Harvard does not have a cell on climate change, and if I apply, there's obviously a short no to it. Again, when you're filling your Fulbright application, they ask you to give 3 universities. If you fill a university which is nowhere related to your subject, they will again reject your application. Second is the right degree program. Like I said, you need to focus on whether you're going to apply for Fulbright Nehru or Fulbright Kalam, depending on your subject. So if you apply for the wrong one, again, there's a tendency of rejection. Subject group. So I cannot apply under international law for climate change. Again, they will think that you don't have a focus for your research and you're very unsure what you want to do. So you'll have to pick your subject group also is a very important aspect. Criteria, I think Anita ma'am has already spoken about it. Each fellowship has their own criteria. So it's very important that we go to the website and look at what they want. For example, in Fulbright, they say that if you are in the fag end of your PhD or you've not done your coursework, they will not accept your application. So you'll have to look at where you fit in. So if you do not fit in these two, then I don't think they will look at the criteria. Eligibility, it's a mandate that you have to be registered in India. And also with regard to, like I said, your coursework should be over and you should have done a substantial part of your research, but not, towards the end of your research. Now, what makes someone compelling candidate for this fellowship? Let's look at that. So first thing, some of the criteria that I've put up is basically after reading a lot of applications and also looking at the website. So first is they look for publication in a reputed journal. So you can have one or you can have two, but at least one is mandatory. So they would actually question you on that research, and it has to be related to the area that you're trying to probably go ahead and focus or research on. Then letter of support, which is basically from your guide. and two other, they ask for 3 letters. So preferably one should be from your guide and 2 could be from any other professors or who you think know you better, who can actually give a conviction on your research work, who knows you with regard to your ethical perspective of research and also professional catering. So it shouldn't be someone who just says that she's good and you should take her. No, if you can give a conviction saying that, she's shown leadership quality, she's able to mingle with people even if she's outside her boundaries, something on those lines is what they look at. Resume, CV, again, Anita ma'am is specified about, it should be concise. So for the US, they prefer a 2-page CV. They're very specific about that. You need to stick to 2-page. So let's say you have about 15 research conferences, seminars that you've attended. You need to specify only selected seminars which you think are correlated to your research area you're applying for the fellowship. So they look at that and they actually ask you, how was this seminar useful to you? What did you learn out of it? How can you actually help when you go to the US? Or what is the host institute going to get out of this particular seminar? So those are certain things you might have to keep in mind while you're listing your CV. Then is your statement of purpose. So statement of purpose, again, like Anita ma'am was saying, I kind of go with her opinion. We tend to ask for reference. Reference is completely fine, but when they see that there is a monotony or there's some sort of a similarity, they tend to reject it because they do put it through plagiarism check. And sometimes in a subconscious mind, you tend to copy certain words, certain sentences, and then probably replace it with your own word or your name, maybe your place. Again, it kind of catches their attention. So try to write on your own. And then, yes, you can obviously refer to the other fellows who've got selected, but it need not be because of their statement of purpose they're selected also. There could be a different criteria. It could be maybe because of the research proposal. So we cannot blindly rely on somebody's statement of purpose and say that that was the reason that they actually got selected also. Then is your research proposal. So I'm going to talk from the perspective of Fulbright because that's my area which I have worked on. So Fulbright has this criteria that you have to fit in your proposal in 5 pages, and you have to ensure that it has a short introduction, but a lengthy understanding of what research methodology you're going to take up. So you'll have to specify a field study. They will obviously ask you, if it is doctoral, you can just sit at home in India and Google or use your database. Why do you have to go all the way to the US? So you can't say that I'll go there and refer to a book. They'll say you can procure it in your library, right? So you'll have to specify what kind of field study. And in that field study, what is your population you're taking? How many people do you intend to visit in the 6 months or 9 months that you're proposing? Then your objective of the study. Also, you'll have to specify the reference that you've put up, and also what is the outcome post your fellowship. So how is this fellowship actually going to, how do you deem it that this particular fellowship is going to give you a platform for your research, and how is it going to help? So this is something that they look at in the research proposal. Apart from what Anita ma'am said, I think that kind of is common for all fellowships. But just to add on with regard to the US perspective, these are certain things that they look at. And like I said, they have a limit of 5 pages, and you have to stick to that. Otherwise, they tend to reject it again. Now the selection board. So what do they look at and how do they actually come up? So once your proposal goes through, they call you for an interview. Now, in the interview stage also, they basically look at your academic credential and professional ability. So when you actually apply for a Fulbright, you will notice that one of the criteria is that if you are working, you need to get a no objection certificate from your employer. And they also have to state that they're aware that you're going and that you'll be returning back. So that's an assurance that you have to give them when you're applying. Second is the merit of the proposed project. So if I'm taking up something which is redundant or which has already been researched and I'm not going to be of any use, again, there's a tendency that it might get rejected. So you need to ensure that it's something of a burning issue and how that particular model in that country is going to be useful for us once we come back. Then is your communication skills. So a lot of time what happens is maybe our research proposal and a statement of purpose might be good, but we're not able to communicate so much. So when they put up, so in the panel, normally when I went in, there were about 12 of them who were seated. Each of them were not from law, but from various perspectives. So they had somebody from social science, they had somebody from psychology, they had somebody from cultural studies. So all of them have had a very different view on my topic. And you should be able to communicate to them why it's a pressing issue and you really need to go and do the field study. Next is commitment to the community or national service. So you need to prove to them that your research is something that's going to be valuable to the society, especially where you're coming from. So once you do your research and you're going to come back, you're going to write something, you're going to do something, how is that it's going to change the society? You should be able to kind of communicate that to them. Then, yeah, like I said, need to research in the country. The first thing they're going to ask you is, can you not do this research sitting in India? Why do I have to fund you and you have to go all the way to the US? And what is that's going to come? So these kind of questions can come to us. So we should have a conviction and a need to show them that field study is inevitable for our research. And if we do that research, there is going to be some sort of a change with regard to the society as well as to our research contribution. The outcome, potential, impact, and benefit. This is something that we put in our statement of purpose, research proposal. So they look at what kind of outcome do you intend? Is it actually possible if you go there? The potential impact on our society and the benefit. So benefit need not be just to society at large. It could be also to your university. So wherever you're pursuing your PhD, can your university benefit from your research? That's also something they could ask you. The next is how deeply you're eager to go and get this fellowship. If you're somebody who's just applying because everybody else is applying, maybe you might not get a chance because we won't have the conviction to convince them that we really need this fellowship and this is like a do or die situation. So it's very important for us to go heads on and try and convince them that we will do our best. Maybe we're not the best, but we will take out all the skills that we have and try to be what they want us to be. So they also, so for example, Anita ma'am or even Ria ma'am, all of them are also ambassadors to India when they're visiting the respective countries. So Anita ma'am would have been an ambassador to in EU with respect to India. Ria ma'am was to Canada. So I was representing in the US. So all of them look at us not just as research scholars, but also how are we taking ourselves one step ahead as ambassadors. So are we ready to share our cultural experience? Are we ready to share our research experience? Are we open to accepting their differences? So these are certain things they might question us in different perspectives through different examples. So be ready for acceptance and also say that we're open to learning. And if you're not aware also, it's fine. You can say that we're not aware, but we will surely be happy to adapt to the new change and we look forward to that change. The last is ability to participate as a cultural representative. So when you go for these fellowships, they not just look at your research proposal perspective, they also want to know how can you contribute or show the other part of the country what kind of culture and value your country holds. And like I said, since you're the brand ambassador of the country, it's also how you kind of specify what you've done in your specific region, local, national. How could you actually portray India, and how best can you put India forward is also something that they look at, because these fellowship is also a stepping stone for the future fellows to go forward. So if we put in a bad mark, it kind of stops them from letting other fellows from entering, right? So that's why they judge us on these perspectives also. Now, outcome of research. My field study was with respect to a very small group. So mine was with regard to climate change and renewable energy. So when I was doing research on that, I had the opportunity to go and meet policymakers. So it is very different from what I had read and what I had interpreted through scholarly works. When you go and talk to them face to face, you understand what was the basic ideology of bringing up a particular law. A lot of time we criticize their laws or we criticize their approach without understanding the background. So yes, it's completely right that we cannot compare India to any of these countries that the other panelists have gone to, because we are still a developing nation. But it's also important to understand from where they're coming. So that kind of information, maybe you'll get it only when you go there, visit, talk to them, and you're kind of open about what is happening in India and what we are facing. So even for them, they have a very different perspective of what Indian laws are or Indian research is. So the field study actually helped me incorporate a huge chunk of my research on the comparative analysis, where I was able to justify why I had to go all the way and take that model. And I also put in my research saying that what India should learn, for example, the failures that certain policies had in the US, and why we should not go in that model. So just to give an example, so in environmental law, those scholars who are doing environmental law, I'm sure you're familiar with the public trust doctrine. So in India, we've actually taken the precedent from two cases from the US, which is the Odd Society case and the Philip Petroleum case, which was literally used in MC Mehta versus Kamal Nath. So in the US, they have this huge consideration for the Indian judiciary, especially when it comes to environmental jurisprudence. At the same time, I was able to criticize and show why certain policies should not be followed as it is followed in the US, because it's not feasible for India. So I think that outcome came only with the interaction with the experts there and their view and their self-criticism about certain policies, even though it was kind of laid down and it's been following for quite many number of years. So this, I think, I think I've kind of run out of a little bit of time, but then I'm just going to just quickly tell from where you can find information apart from Just Focus. I think Riya ma'am is doing a wonderful job by putting up the platform for all of you to actually access. Also, like Anita ma'am was there, there's someone to help you. I mean, that's very important. One caveat I would tell you is when you're doing your fellowship, you can feel depressed. You can feel like throwing everything and just giving up. It is all common. We've been there, done there. If you have Riya ma'am there, you can just get through all this. Anita ma'am has been a huge inspiration to me because she went way before all of us. So it was always nice when she said that, just go ahead, just try. Let's see how it works. Doesn't matter, but just, try. So a lot of time when we're applying, what happens is after you look at the length of the application, you might just shut your laptop. It's fine. It's completely fine. Shut it that day, open it after 2 days, but ensure you meet the deadlines. Don't shut it forever, but please do try and apply for it. So these are some of the places apart from where Anita ma'am mentioned. You can actually look up for the fellowships. For Fulbright, you can just look up the USIEF website. So right now it is September 15th, if I'm not wrong. So you still have time. So please do try and apply for it. And I think, ma'am, I will hand over the session to you and probably come back during the Q&A. Is that fine? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Vidya ma'am, for having such a wonderful session and interaction, especially on Fulbright, because everyone's probably be keen on how it works. Yeah, so again, participants, feel free to drop in your questions into the chat box and we'll definitely take it up, because the idea here is that you have an experience of, you have a take back. And so whatever you have a query on, please feel free to drop it in your chat box and we'll take it from there. Right. So I will take it from here to the Shastri Institute Fellowship that I had gone on about these. I will just share the link in the chat just in case anyone wants to check out. So the idea about this particular fellowship that I had went was for the short-term program that Shastri Institute had offered. Just give me a second. I'll just share. One second, I'm sorry. I hope it's visible. So I thought I'll just run you through before we go into the idea of the Shastri Institute Fellowship. This is funded by the MHRD, and they provide, this is a tie-up between the Indian scholars and Canadian scholars. They have multiple fellowships that's given to different levels, say a PhD scholar, master's, MPhil, and even postdoc or a collaborative research. And they have multiple fellowship that runs through the year. So the PhD scholarship, in fact, there's one open right now for those who are interested about doing a short-term research fellowship in Canada. So this is, in fact, also you have multiple avenues depending on what your qualification lie in. So one thing you need to remember is, as a PhD scholarship, it's a common pool. So this is not just for legal, this is also for the other disciplines. I believe that goes again for Fulbright as well as Erasmus, where you have it for the multiple disciplines. So your competition is with the general disciplines, right? As again, as my fellow panelists has rightly pointed out, the first and the important part of any of these fellowships is to have a host institute in that country. So now one of the key areas that most of the scholars have found is, how do you get a letter of invite or a person hosting you in that country? It's very simple. Be shameless. Go ahead, take the possible listed universities in their specific fellowship websites, look at the faculty list, identify the faculty in your subject area, at least try to find out an article that they have done, mail them. You have nothing to lose. Anyway, they're not going to hunt you down and, block you. The maximum they'll probably block you is on your mailing list. But go ahead, mail them. So in case you are able to establish a conversation with them and obtain a letter of invite, and always make sure you have at least one or more than two letter of invites, just in case something doesn't work out, right? So once you have your letter of invite from a host institute in the country you want to travel to, especially in Shastri, as you're traveling to Canada, you have a host institute letter of invite, your battle is done 50%. But that wouldn't suffice. Now you come down to, your letter of recommendation, the application process, and the remaining. So after the letter of invite, the second most important step, which takes the major chunk, is the application. So for Shastri Institute, the scoring, since we did not have an interview, the scoring was completely on what you write down in the application. The application was scored out of, say, 50 marks or 10 mark for 5 sections. So I wouldn't go section by section. The primary requirement here they look at is, how does this particular project has a connection between India and Canada? So how are you? So if you look here, there are you will see this form online, right? And this is basically a portal that you go up and register and fulfill your data in. But the core area that lies here is, you must be, as Vidya ma'am rightly said, you must be in your second, advanced stage of research, but not too close to submitting your thesis. Right? So ideally what they call is in your second year of research, where you're in a stage of data collection or collecting data in any form. So it can be a qualitative data, it can be a data of conceptual level, it can be any stage, but preferably an advanced stage where you have, or your visit has a contribution to your research and you still have space to record them in your thesis. Right? So in that, while you put it down, the prime focus is to see, how does this travel of yours contribute to your research? How does your subject area help a scholar or help such a transition? Say you're studying about an empirical study about tribals in a enclosed area in India, and you want to travel to Canada. The question would be, so how are we going to be benefit? How are you as a scholar going to benefit with an interaction of scholars here? Right? So the focus area would be to understand the possible contribution that this transfer or this travel can help you in your research. The next most important thing is, what would it have an anticipate, or how would it contribute to them if you as a scholar travel there? So while they're giving you space, fund, and support, how is that going to benefit them, or your presence is going to add value to them? So ultimately, you have those abstract terms that you can use. Say, for example, if I conduct research in so and so area, this is how, I would probably be impacted, that because it has set out say a parameter or the quality benchmark. You can use certain terminologies that way, which will help you to showcase, say, this is how it's going to contribute to my research and my experience in this particular field, or since I've worked on this, probably an interaction with in this interaction with a scholar like me in this particular field can help fellow members over there. So they look at how is your presence in that institute or your travel would contribute to the research field in Canada, or as you go any other fellowship. Then they go on to see is how does it, or potentially what is the potential social change that you see through this research. So let's be realistic. For any research scholar, you start off with the idea of revolution, end up with the idea of wanting a degree. So you show your revolutionary idea here, saying, your research would make a change. Now, this is all about how you look at the significance of research. Does it have a community purpose? So does it have something, a takeaway that your experience will bring back to the Indian research or to Canadian research? So because they leave this because you have a scope for Canadian scholars also to come to India. So where does this contribute to a community at large? Now, say, for example, mine was on experiential legal education. Since it was an empirical study, the area that I focused on was what would be the possible social change that it can have was to understand the conceptual framework that Canada based itself on. Canada being the first country, or probably one of the first few countries that was experienced the first wave, they had a conceptual foundation or a strong foundation about it. So their conceptual would actually help how we translate experiential learning in India. And likewise, how does that research of mine would ultimately benefit the public at large? So that was another area that they focused on. So, and the other one, as again, most of the fellowships looks at, as Vidya ma'am again rightly pointed, we're all ambassadors. So how does this go beyond an academic interaction? I believe that's how the Erasmus fellowship or any fellowship will look at you as a person from this particular cultural background. What kind of contribution or exchange cultural value would you bring in to that particular country? So any developed country for that matter had a curiosity to know about the developing countries, especially a country like India, because though we tend to not undervalue our cultural strongholds, they tend to see it as a big deal. So they care about what is the cultural practices that we have, how do because for them it is a shock. One of the instances, as simple as Canada has 20 law institutes, compared to India having 1,500. For Canada, with more or less a similar size of India, 20 law schools were a huge number, till they heard that India has 1,500. Their doubt was, what do you do with all these people? And then the response was, even we don't know what we do with all these people. So they have that cultural interaction is something they are curious about. They would want to fund Indians to understand that cultural diversity. So few things that you can take care of while formulating your thesis, your proposal is, one, please be specific about the word limit. They do not want to hear your story. They only care about what can you tell them directly in the concise manner, because as our thesis would go to say 300 to 400 pages, most of the theses in any of these developed countries would maximum run to say 100 to 150 pages. That's like a monograph that they publish. So for them, brevity is what they look at. How concisely can you convince the reader that you as a scholar in your research area traveling here would get you A, B, C, D, E points? And how does that work? You would have a clear-cut idea that has traveled. Say you see your end result of your thesis by the second year. You know what you are expecting from your thesis by the end of the research. So make sure you highlight those points, integrating it with what they have already done in that particular research. So you have a little of background research to do. So some of the background research probably you have to work based on the country that you're aiming at is, one, what is the existing research in that country on your research area? How have they contributed? Who were the professors who have worked on this area? What is the implication it had as far as possible globally? So this not only helps you to justify in the proposal, but also tells them, see, this is a university that's contributed, and both of us interacting with each other has a scope of future research. So any funding agency would also like that, to say, see, you would come back and they're showcasing a end result. Say, for instance, Shastri Institute wanted to see how does our interaction take it one step forward. Would it result in, of course, you completing a thesis? Yes. But what is the nature of publication that can come out? Or what is the nature of collaborations that can run out? Likewise. So any of this, so they usually have something, maximum what they have is the best part of Shastri Institute Fellowship, I think the application form is they specify questions under which there's designated spacing. So how would you carry out your work in Canada? What is your plan of action that through your journey in that particular place, how would you see yourself completing the work? How do you see yourself? What is the time duration that you look at? Because as any fellowship would ask, what is the duration you're planning to spend? How are you going to utilize this time that you're going to spend there? So obviously we wouldn't include the sightseeing and etc. in that, but you generally would tell them what is the level of research that you would go into while you're there, because that will justify, does it make sense to send that person physically over there, right? Because the moment you say, oh, you have a plan in mind, you are seeing the end result. So any of these fellowship documents that we look at is looking at the general outcome that we are expecting from such, by engaging the scholars in such fellowship. Apart from the fellowship document, now that we have these two, the letter of invite and letter of the proposal document, the next most important part is the letter of recommendation that you have from the professors, whoever is going to recommend. Preferably for the Shastri Fellowship, one of the mandatory requirements was that the guide should recommend the same. Right? The reason is the guide would be the ideal person to tell you how he or she is as a scholar, what is the stage of research that person is in, what would be, what is the credibility that the scholar carries, would that scholar be able to carry out the research? So you would be, the research guide would be in a position to evaluate you on the parameters specifically set. So as Anita ma'am said earlier, make sure you have clear-cut idea about the eligibility, because the keywords are there in the fellowship notification itself. And make sure all of these keywords are somewhere the other used, because as the reviewers, they are going to get hundreds of applications, right? Of hundreds of applications, how does your application stand out? That is where the keywords will help. How do you showcase that you carry that minimum requirement to justify yourself to be there, right? Then the remaining goes, Canadian scholarship, because the application had itself all the necessary data about your resume. They did not separately ask for a resume or your CV, but publications, your few earlier fellowships, all your academic credentials and non-academic credentials also. So you might have something as you carry something as, say, a theater artist or something. They also carry, because you have a component of your cultural factor involved. So you can use all your credentials into, and how you place it is what fetches you that score. So this is how the Canadian fellowship proposals went by. And now I think we will take this time for the participants to share us their questions about. Then I leave it. I now open the space for discussion. Any panelists, to all the participants can now freely drop in your questions, ask the questions. I think there's always been inertia to start off with the question. So I think, okay, just to, brush up. So I believe we can always start with Erasmus, because Erasmus has a huge number of funding that goes in about specifically to the Indian community, their attention to the Indian community. So while ma'am, you'd applied for the particular fellowship or your subject area, could you given certain inputs about did your subject area, how did you identify the university with relating to what was the subject you were researching on?
If this question is from me?
For you, ma'am, Anita, ma'am. Yes,
okay, in between it got unstable, so I was just wondering who you are asking. Anyways, thank you so much for your question, Ria. So as far as I could gather, you were asking that how I was able to identify university, right?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. So let me tell you, it was more like identifying a supervisor, external supervisor. So based on an external supervisor, I have identified university. Let me tell you. So my area was relating to the human rights area, and then I saw one of the professor. She was specialized in human rights area. She was the member of the UN Human Rights Committee. So, and of course, after going through the CV, I realized, okay, no, she is the best supervisor, I should work under her. So for me, rather than, choosing the university, I preferred the supervisor. So, and I was lucky enough to, get under her. And right now she's a judge in European Court of Human Rights. So I think that was the best way worked for me. So choosing the supervisor rather than the university matters for me. Yeah.
Brilliant. Vidya ma'am, what about for Fulbright?
So for me, more than me, I think my mentors helped me. So Professor Sairam Bhatt and Professor Ramesh has been very vital in helping me choose. The reason why I had to approach them is because I was kind of very skeptical about how to approach these professors. So I did do initially an initial mailing to a list of professors. I got rejected. So I was very, very disheartened. So I thought I'm going to just give up. So when I had to go and talk to my mentors, Professor Sairam sir was like, don't give up. We'll see a way out. And Professor Ramesh was my supervisor, said, let's just try. Let's try some more professors. There will be someone who would accept. So that is something that is possible when you're applying, that people can reject. It's completely fine. Like, that's what I said, when you're applying, you really need that system where you'll have your friends, you'll have your mentors, you'll have your professors backing you. So please don't let go of them. They're very, very vital. Also for Fulbright, there's this thing where the fellowship does not require you to be accepted. You can put up the 3 institutes you urge to go for, and they will place you. So even if you do not get in a university an invite, don't be afraid. If they're happy with your proposal, if they're happy with your SOP, they will place you. That's actually one good thing about Fulbright. I think it works a little different for every fellowship, but in Fulbright, this is how it works. So don't be disheartened like me and don't give up. Please do keep trying.
Sorry, that's very important point, because most of the time there's a reluctance to even apply, thinking I have to get an invite from the host institute. And we have one of the participants' question from Ms. Vaishnavi, where the question is about if the scholar do not have a publication, even one publication in the research area, would that be a disadvantage to the fellowship? I think maybe to start off from my side, from the Shastri Institute, specific subject area publication is not what they look at. So as far as publication is concerned, they are generic about, as long as you have a publication in a renowned journal would suffix when it comes to Shastri Fellowship. So I believe, we can hear from the other panelists.
So if you have a publication, of course, it will add an advantage, because you need to remember you are going for a PhD, level. It's not like you are going for a master level. So I think having a publication always, going to add a weightage. So in my case, it was not a mandatory, but I had a publication which I believe must have added certain, weightage to my application. I don't know what, maybe Vidya must be having some other view.
So I think they look for a write-up more than
Mm.
publication. They look for a write-up. And we tend to say publication because we know we've put in that much of effort when it is a reputed journal.
Mhm.
But otherwise, you just tend to write something which even you're not satisfied with. That's why I think they also prefer publication, or they specify you need a good publication. So that's why I
Okay.
said you just need one. That'll be like great. Even if you have a working paper, but you're confident that that work is good, you can still put it up. They will consider it. Please remember, these fellowships and the professors abroad actually read word to word, like they go sentence to sentence and see whether your research makes sense or not. So it's very
Right.
important that whatever you put forward is actually valid.
Excellent, excellent. So we have another question, which is a little different from the context here. But to just clarify, I believe one of the questions relating to publication is what kind of publication should it be? So where should it be UGC specified or Scopus? I think they're open to peer review generally, as long as I think Vidya ma'am has already clarified. Would Anita ma'am would like to add on to?
It is not necessary, the foreign professor must be knowing about your UGC care stuff. So it's very much Indian thing. So as long as it is a peer reviewed, it will work. As Vidya ma'am has already, emphasized that, even if it is working paper, you can, put up that and they will consider that.
So I think that would not be a constraint for most of the, if you have any kind of write-up on us, that should be able to help you, right? And Kanchan, I believe you have a question about PhD topic relating to fellowship. Though that's a very broad topic to discuss on, we will have to cut it down, because more than choosing a topic that suits the fellowship, you choose a topic you can survive with and tweet it to match the fellowship. So because they have, at least in the specific fellowship questions, they will ask you what is that your topic will make a difference, right? So you don't need to necessarily take up an international topic just to go for a fellowship, because your idea is to get a PhD in the end. But the PhD topic selection, we wouldn't go into discussing the type of topics, but generally this would be. But you can also listen to the other panelists, ma'am. Anita ma'am, Kanchan had a question about choosing the topic.
I think, I will agree whatever, you have covered, because again, it's require another panel discussion on this. So in future, if you will arrange a panel discussion on that, maybe we all can go into detail. But again, I completely agree with you. It's not like, you are choosing a topic internationally just because you wanted to go. And so it depends very much, it depends. So I agree whatever you said.
Thank you, ma'am. So next question is about qualifying an IELTS exam or for getting into any of the fellowships. So Vidya ma'am.
So for Fulbright, you need to clear TOEFL, but you need to clear that only after you clear your interview round. And the good part about this is Fulbright pays for the expense for your TOEFL. TOEFL is quite expensive. So they actually pay for it. So you don't have to worry about it. But yes, you need to get a minimal score, which they expect. If not, they have an alternative provision where they send you for training, which I'm not quite sure of because I didn't go for that. But normally, yeah, you have to take your TOEFL score. Others, they will not let you go.
Excellent. Anita ma'am.
Okay, let me tell you, in my case, mostly in European country, it depends again, university to university. So in my case, I don't need to clear any of the exam. So they just ask me, you get a certificate from your institution that your medium of instruction was in English. So for me, that worked out.
Excellent. Because when it came to Shastri Fellowship, one of the things was, since they had member universities listed, there was a presumption or a benefit of doubt given to the scholars saying that their medium of instruction was English. So for that reason, Shastri Institute did not require any of the qualifying exams. So it was open primarily because there are a lot of technical team that comes in. There are so many from IITs who dropped in, who probably, the language was the science. So they did not have a requirement. They do not, at least Shastri Institute do not have a requirement of English test. Acceptable, factor. We have another few questions. Say, for example, this is like a 3-level questions. One is, how do you prepare? How long does it take to prepare for fellowship? Second question, does the research have to be interdisciplinary? And what if we get rejected? Okay. So we'll take one by one. How long does it take? Anita ma'am, for Erasmus, how long did it take?
As early as you start. Let me tell you, as I told you, it takes, like entire year. So, you start, as soon as possible. So it's not like, I will say, let's say 1 month, 2 months. For everyone, things work in very differently. So maybe if you are sitting day and night, so 1 month would be suffice. So we all were, I think, working when we got this scholarship. So we have to really start at very early stage. So there's, as such, I will not specify any time period. You please start as soon as possible. So this is my answer.
A Fulbright?
I think it's the same. And I go with Anita, ma'am. You can't actually specify how long, but maybe because I had completed like 2 years of research in climate change law, it was a little easier when I had to bring the proposal in. That's why it maybe because of that, they prescribe that you finish your coursework and you're not at the fag end of your submission because you've done substantial research. And again, it depends and varies, like Anita ma'am rightly said, depends on your situation. If you're a full-time research scholar, maybe it'll take shorter. But for me, it did take quite some time because I didn't find time. So I had to kind of squeeze things in. So yeah, it kind of varies.
So for Shastri, the thing is the window, now that the thing about Shastri Fellowship is you are applying through the portal where the document is only available on the portal. So person, if you're not aware about the questions about how do you channelize it, it's difficult to actually apply it, start preparing beforehand. So the preparation started for me, at least, is when the portal opened, which had close to a month's time, because all this, your preparation is proportional to getting a letter of invite. So now, for instance, if your proposal, would you send out your proposal to get a letter of invite? Would your potential host want to see how your proposal look, to see if they can support you here? Would take time. So put in, say, a month of time to draw out the proposal, connect with your scholars, because it's going to have a level of multiple emails that can go in, to have a draft of how would you see yourself completing the time frame, because you're going to look at the time frame, what exactly are you going into having it reviewed. Say put in a month or 2 in phrase, in time period, because most of these places, unlike India, they're very strict about their holidays. So when the holiday season comes in, particularly December, because Shastri's one application ends in December, which is a tricky time, because December is the time Canadians take holidays. I believe the Europeans again also is, they want their holidays. So when you mail them, they'll have an auto-generated mail that comes back to you to say out of office mail. So you need to, keep that also in mind. So even if your fellowship hasn't started, one thing if you plan for that is to look out for the host institute. Look up, do the groundwork and start looking out which are the universities listed, whom probable professors, write to them, get connected, and then, but proposal per se, it's going to take a month. Give yourself some time. Yes, Vidya ma'am, please.
I just want to add in what Ria ma'am said. Even for Fulbright, you have to actually register in a portal. So I think they open up now for September. They opened up probably by March. So from March onwards, you can actually fill in your application. So one thing about this portal is that they keep reminding you have so many days left. You have so many. So you kind of get like a heart attack saying, okay, I have only 1 month left. I have only 2 months. So it's a good thing. So register and keep it. And you can do it at your pace. But the faster it gets over, the better it is. Like ma'am was saying, they have the holiday period and they're very, very reluctant to reply. So if they don't reply, you kind of miss out on a lot of your proposal and a lot of other things. So I think, yeah, that's.
So, and then the next question we have is about the interdisciplinarity of the research. Personally, I think every research would have an interdisciplinary nature to it. So would the fellowship carry that, though they specifically don't mention, it's always preferred, because remember, this is not exclusively for law. This is for all disciplines. So the funding and pooling would go together. So yeah, at least Shastri wise, yes, Fulbright and Erasmus.
Okay, so I also, agree with same point, because there's no point why they will call you if you wanted to, focus, let's say, only the Indian context. So having an interdisciplinary, or let's say having a certain topic which can, let's say common topic. I think Vidya ma'am's topic, I'm not sure, but climate change, it's
Right.
impacting entire world. So if you have such kind of topic or interdisciplinary, chances are, I think, more, as per my understanding.
Right. And then, yes, this question on about if you get rejected, you get to reappear. At least for Shastri, again, you don't have a number of limits. You can definitely reappear. So till you get, you can definitely go on. Yeah.
Okay, let me tell you, if you get rejected, don't be disheartened. Apply for all this short 1 month, courses. You will get, motivation to apply once again. So that's why, I told you about the shorter period of the courses also.
Right.
That also give a lot of booster. And, it will help you to develop contacts also. 1 month is sufficient to develop the contact.
True. I mean, Fulbright, Vidya ma'am, Fulbright, doesn't have a limit.
No. You
because
can
in fact, one of the scholar I was supporting for Shastri, the first time she had applied, her paper got rejected, but they do not come and tell you why yours got rejected. But next time when we sat around and retweeted or changed it to suit, she got accepted for the later session. So there's no limit to the times that you can appear for. So as long as you have a proposal in hand, you apply and use this proposal tweeted to apply for multiple fellowship. Rejected, reapply. No problem, not a problem. And the next one is there an age limit? Ma'am, for Erasmus?
Oh, at that point of, I was quite young, so I didn't notice if there was any age limit. I'm so sorry. I could not recall if there is any age limit.
I think it again depends on the eligibility part of it, because most of it do not talk about age limit, but there are specific that talks about age limit also. So I think they will specify in the general criteria itself. I think 60% of it is, I think it doesn't apply. The next one we have is again short term. Is it fully funded? I believe that is also full. You have, I think, depending on you have application. Say for example, as ma'am was mentioning about Hague, they fully funded fellowship got over on 31st of July. Now the remaining, they say partial and self-funded is open now. So they again have multiple options there. Ma'am, would you like to add on?
Okay, I just wanted to tell you, I only applied for all fully funded, scholarships. So whatever the scholarship names I told you, they all are fully funded and they all are sufficient, unless you wanted to live the luxurious life in Europe. So that will be suffice.
So I think that explains Kanchan's question about how do you, about the short-term courses, how to apply and get in.
So Kanchan, if I can answer, Kanchan, what you can do, as for example, I told you about the Hague Summer School. So a detailed, criteria and everything is given on the website. So the moment you Google it, Hague Summer School, you will get everything, all the eligibility criteria, how to apply it, even, what are the other requirements like motivational letter, reference letter. So I hope, reading the website will help you a lot in terms of understanding how to apply it.
Excellent. So I think we have actually exceeded the time, and it was definitely a wonderful session to have both of you here with me to discuss on this. And it did throw a lot of light into various aspects of these fellowship, because frankly, there were things that, we could share personally also about how different fellowship works and how it goes. And I would like to take this opportunity to thank both of you, Dr. Vidya and Dr. Anita, for accepting my invitation and joining in this panel and reaching out to the participants. And I really hope all the participants are benefited and they'll go ahead and try. I mean, as Vidya ma'am and Anita ma'am rightly said, simply try. Who are you to limit yourself? Let everyone else limit you. Just go ahead and try. You get it, you don't get it. Nothing much. They will not blacklist you. I believe they will not blacklist you, right? I mean, no. So as long as they don't blacklist you, go ahead and try. And you will definitely enjoy the period that you're going to have there. It transforms you personally and professionally. If not anything, you'll feel good to have come back from some random country. So it's going to be good. Thank you for joining us this evening, and I hope all of you have a wonderful evening. Yeah, thank you so much. I'm just going to share the feedback form in the chat, and please be kind enough to fill in your feedbacks so we know how we can improve on our such sessions. Yeah. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Ria ma'am. Thank you,
Ria.
Anita ma'am.
Thank you,
And
Vidya.
thank you, participants. It was wonderful. And if you guys have any questions, queries, please feel free to reach out to Ria ma'am. I think she's doing a wonderful job here. So please do reach out to her. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.